a lot of loose skin, and of course I still have a little bit of that swollen uterus and extra fat stores. Today we're going to be talking all about my recovery, how it's been, how my mental health has been, physical healing, how my body looks now versus pre-pregnancy, all that good stuff that you might be wondering. Hey everyone, and happy fall. I'm back with another video today. If you're new here, my name's Sierra and I make motherhood content. I'm a first-time mom and currently I am a month out postpartum. So exactly 1 month ago this week, I had my baby, and if you want to hear more about that story, I have a labor and delivery vlog and I'll be doing a whole birth story coming up soon because it was insane. However, today we're going to be talking all about my recovery, how it's been, how my mental health has been, physical healing, how my body looks now versus pre-pregnancy, all that good stuff that you might be wondering. The first thing that I want to talk about with all of that is where I was at after delivery, because after the labor and delivery vlog, it kind of cut out. I stopped filming, and if you hear little squeals in the background, that is my cute baby. We're gonna see how far we can make it in this video before she might have to join us. When it came to my labor and delivery, I ended up having an epidural. That wasn't my plan, but I'm glad I did it anyways. Because of that, I was at more risk of tears, and I did indeed tear. I had a 1 first-degree tear that didn't really require any stitches. I had an abrasion, and then I did have a 2nd-degree tear. I myself never took a look at the 2nd-degree tear. I've since looked, but I think it's healed for the most part. I did get stitches in that one. I didn't need too many. It wasn't a 3rd-degree tear. I didn't have an episiotomy, which was amazing to be able to say. However, with that being said, I didn't feel any of the stitches. Granted, I didn't feel them going because I was so numb, but even after the numbness wore off, the stitches haven't been too bad. I haven't felt anything except for a little bit of that itchiness and tightness that you feel whenever you have stitches healing, whether that be on your arm or downstairs. It kind of feels the same way when it's a wound healing. I've definitely been feeling a lot of that. With that being said, that was the only kind of complication I had. I accidentally had induced myself into labor. I guess not accidentally. I'd been doing all the natural induction things and I induced myself into labor so hard that my contractions were coming with only 10 seconds apart. And because of that, because of how fast and furious my labor was, my uterus shrank down really quickly after birth. So if you're having one of those labors, or if you've had one of those labors, you might have a recovery similar to mine, because right after, my uterus had already shrunk down a lot. Even though we had administered Pitocin, it wasn't necessarily necessary in my case. We also found out that my placenta that I had was actually smaller than it should have been for the fetus's size and growth. So that has had an impact on me having an easier recovery because I've had less of a wound size. However, any wound is still a wound, and even though mine's not the full dinner plate size, it's like one of the lunch plate sizes, it's still been a lot to deal with. With that, bleeding of course was the heaviest in the first couple days. I did have the epidural slowly wearing off, and so my walking was pretty impaired for the first day and a half. The first day, actually, I was in the bathroom, trying to go to the bathroom, and I had my legs completely give out on me. Since then, I have fully regained the use of my legs. I feel great and very mobile, but that took about a week and a half to fully wear off for me, which is a long time. With that being said, another thing that had occurred for me in the realm of numbness is my left butt area was numb for the first 2 weeks, and that's quite a lot. Now, my baby was born sunny side up, or was almost born sunny side up. She did turn right before coming out, but my labor was a sunny side up labor, and so the largest part of her head was actually pressing on my back and pressing on those nerves. So what I believed happened is some of those nerves were compressed, and that can happen and that can lead to some numbness. I've had a full regain of my sensation in that area, a full regaining of being able to move that area and be very mobile, and so that's been lovely as well. As far as activity, I did try to practice the 5 days in bed, 5 days on the bed, 5 days around the bed rule. However, with that being said, I'm kind of a stubborn person and I really wanted to get back to my routine. And I personally felt well enough by about day 6 to be roaming around the house doing light cleaning and just taking it easy. I did have a couple slip back days where I had to go back to bed, take it easy, and take it really slow and steady. However, those were the outliers, and the most of the time I felt pretty good. For pain control, I was taking ibuprofen as well as Tylenol. After the hospital, I was directed to take them both in conjunction with each other every 6 hours. I needed to do that for about the first week. Quick break. After the first week, I felt well enough to stop taking them, which was really nice because with the middle of the night feedings I was having to do, I was having to time out both my medication time of every 6 hours and the midnight feedings, and those were on her schedule. So there would be a lot of times where she would wake up at 2 a.m. and I would think like, okay, I might be able to get 2.5 hours of sleep, and then remember that my pills were needing to be taken at 3 a.m. So that was something that was frustrating that I didn't know was going to happen and did. However, when you get over that hump, it feels so much better to be off the medicine and back into the swing of things. As far as other medicines, I haven't had to take any. However, I have started considering my birth control options that I'm going to take at the 6-week mark. The birth control option that seems the most doable for me is the progesterone only pill because it shouldn't impact my milk supply, although there's some people on the internet who say it might. We're just gonna wait and see. And it's the least invasive. For me personally, I've tried having the Nexplanon in my arm. I had a 3-year-long period from that. If you want a story time on that, go ahead and let me know. But it just didn't work out for me. And so that and an IUD don't seem like exactly the fit for me, especially considering that as soon as it's safe to try, I do believe that we are going to be trying for another baby. We just want to get this season of our life going. And so the pill seems most doable for me, and it seems like the one I'm going to go with. However, I don't need to be taking it right now because we are far away from any activity that would require birth control right now. We got a couple weeks to go at minimum. And of course, I'm going to be waiting until not only am I physically ready, but also I'm mentally ready. Now this brings me into the next point, which is mental health postpartum. And for me, this was actually the hardest part of postpartum. Now, I, in the past, have had struggles with mental health. I've had both depression and anxiety, as well as I did have a diagnosis of PTSD at one point after having a really bad relationship where there were some abusive tendencies and things like that going on. However, I healed from that. I felt really good, and I haven't had any of those issues for a while. But because of that, I was at a higher risk for postpartum depression and was really freaked out about it beforehand. I did see a therapist in the months leading up to birth just to make sure I was in the best mental space. However, that hormone drop will get you, and it brought me to my knees. I'm telling you, emotional roller coaster does not begin to explain it. I felt like I was PMSing every day for the first 2 weeks. There was a point where I broke down in tears because I had convinced myself that me and my husband's marriage is falling apart. Now, this is because of a couple key things. First of all, you have the hormone drop going on, which is about 100 birth control pills a day to 0. That is the amount of hormone shifting you have. And so give yourself grace postpartum because that is enough to rock anybody's world. In fact, they don't diagnose postpartum depression via any symptoms you're having in the first 2 weeks. You have to wait until that's over because in the first 2 weeks, it is actually normal and typical, and I expect to see it that you struggle with these kind of things. Now, for me, I also had some intrusive kind of thoughts coming up. Things like, am I a good enough mom? Am I doing a good enough job? I felt like a failure at some points when she was crying and wailing, and I didn't know how to meet her needs. But I want to assure you that this is a learning curve for everybody. For me, it was a frustrating thing because I am a licensed preschool teacher. I've even worked with infants in the past and been a nanny. I've babysat. I've been around kids for a long time. However, here's the thing. When it's your baby and it's 24/7 and you have the hormones, and you have also this giant wound in your body, and everything's shifting. You look different, you feel different, and now you're getting no sleep as well. It's a different situation. And so if you're in that too, give yourself grace and know that even if you have that experience beforehand, it's not necessarily going to translate to like, oh my God, I know everything about motherhood. Now, having your second baby and third and fourth, I've heard is a lot easier of a transition because you know what it's like to A, be postpartum, B, go through the newborn stage, C, how to deal with sleep deprivation, and D, how to do all of the newborn and infant care things that you don't have to do if you're just taking care of other people's kids, right? And so I would just say give yourself grace on that. I definitely needed to give myself more grace than I did. It has been officially a week and a half of feeling like that cloud is lifted, and I feel so much relief. In fact, one of the weird things is I feel like my pre-pregnancy self before all the pregnancy hormones kicked in. And coming to that is kind of an odd feeling. I feel like I'm welcoming myself back because I was a very calm person. I am still. However, pregnancy hormones made me a little emotional, a little bit more passionate about things at times. And now I'm coming back to a very calm, serene place, which feels amazing. As far as body image goes and weight and all of that, I do want to talk about that in today's video because it is a very sensitive thing. However, I know that it helps to hear that it's normal what you're going through and it's completely okay if you're struggling with these things. And also transitioning and looking different in motherhood is normal and okay as well. So for a little bit of background, I myself have actually struggled with eating disorder in the past, or disordered eating. I never got to the point where I had to be hospitalized or anything like that. Thank God for that. But I did struggle with restricting myself, getting myself to an underweight, under healthy BMI, and doing that on purpose because I didn't like the way I looked and I had a lot of body dysmorphia, and it's something I had to work through in therapy. However, I was really worried that postpartum, these body image issues would come back with a vengeance because you're in a period of time where you don't look like yourself, you don't feel like yourself. To be honest, I still look in the mirror and I'm like, those are my boobs, that's my stomach. I don't believe you, it doesn't feel like it. However, each day I feel like I'm coming more and more into my body. I am coming to terms with the fact that even being healthy, it might look a little different in this stage. Right now, what I'm focusing on is making sure I do not restrict my eating. Even though it's tempting to want to lose weight and all of that, it's not the time to for me. It's the time to make sure that my breast milk is nutritious for my baby, that my healing's going good. So I'm prioritizing a lot of protein. Also, fun tidbit, today I am drinking the drink that I drank the day that I went into labor. So this drink might have put me into labor. It is one of the pumpkin cream cold iced chais, if you were wondering. I also know that this has an ungodly amount of sugar in it. I'm like eating a cake with every sip. Back to postpartum. As far as breastfeeding goes, I've been having a pretty good adjustment. In the first week or so, I had a lot of discomfort. I had blood blisters on my nipples. I had to use cream and switch between that and the hydrogel pads. I almost had to use a nipple shield. The second night in the hospital, I actually had to use a hand pump to pump exclusively from the left side because I was bleeding from that blister and I had so much discomfort. And to be honest, the medicine I was taking, the Tylenol and ibuprofen, was more for the pain I was experiencing with breastfeeding than anything else. The afterbirth contractions for me stopped the second day. And then after that, I only had some minor cramping here and there in the first week that I was home from the hospital. Since then, I have had some quick, sharp pains. With that, I have had 2 weeks where I had some bleeding and all of that. Then it slowed down for the third week, and this week I am actually bleeding again. It is not the same kind of bleeding. I don't know how to describe that. It's more like a very, very light amount of red or light pink blood. Postpartum bleeding can look... Newborns make the wildest sounds, let me tell you. Postpartum bleeding can look different for everybody. Every time I tried to say that, she was making a squeak or a grunt or a pig noise. Gosh, she's so cute. And so I'm still using pads. I actually am using the Equate Just Maxi pads. I found that the ones with wings bug me so bad right now. So bad. As far as how my belly looks, this is the part that I'm sure a lot of you are kind of curious about. So with my pregnancy, some people said I showed big, some people say I showed small. I'm gonna put in a video right here just so that you have some kind of reference to what I looked like. You can also look at some of my old vlogs. My baby was only about 7 pounds. She was 6 pounds 15 ounces. She was a long girl, so she was 20 inches long when she was born. She's already 21.5 inches. So I wasn't huge entirely. But the thing is, I was also very small before starting pregnancy. So weight-wise, I am gonna talk about numbers. If you wanna skip this part, you can skip forward about a minute and it will be over, I promise you, because numbers can be really triggering. And also, numbers are kind of BS. At the beginning of pregnancy, I started out at 124. This is when I was in like my prime of fitness. I was very lean, very muscular. And so I started at this weight, and then by about 1.5 to 2 months in, I had lost weight. So the first trimester, I lost about 5 pounds. I was 119 to 120. I was kind of worried about that, getting to that underweight stage. And then I went and I gained weight again through the pregnancy. So I actually gained on the heavier side of things. They say you should gain between 25 and 35 pounds, but I am an overachiever and I gained 40. So I ended up at 160. Nothing wrong with that. In my mind, I was like, you know what? I'm eating healthy food. I'm doing healthy things. Whatever weight that I gain is healthy. It's what my body needs to hold on to for this baby. Weight is a number and I'm not going to stress about it. That being said, because my body went from a very small size to a very larger size, I'm not even going to say big. 160 is not big, but for me it was larger than I was used to. There was a lot of stretching. So I'm going to show you. I have stretch marks all on the side. All on the side over here. Obviously, I'm not going to show, but I have in my hip area. And then here, I have some stretched skin, especially above my belly button. I still have that linea nigra. This will go away because this is due to the hormones in pregnancy, but it takes a little while to go away. And then I do have a lot of loose skin, and of course I still have a little bit of that swollen uterus and extra fat stores that I gained during pregnancy to make sure baby's healthy and safe in there. And then as far as the back, that is kind of what it's looking like. I do have a lot of loose skin back here. Here, let me see if I can show you. Yeah, right there. Because my skin pulled a lot from the back forward. But with that all being said, this will go back to normal and my body's going to adjust just fine. I'm completely happy with where my body is at because although it's different, for just growing a human, I'm doing pretty good. And no matter what your body looks like postpartum, it's gonna be okay. Now, that is all for the things about me postpartum. I'm gonna be doing a month update on my newborn and how we're doing, but for now, that is all I have for you. I'm so happy you tuned in, and I will be seeing you in the next video.